Srimad Bhagavatam, translated with commentaries by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Canto 1, Chapter 7, The Son of Drona Punished. Text 28. O Arjuna, only another brahmastra can counteract this weapon. Since you are expert in military science, subdue this weapon's glare with your own weapon. Purport. For the atomic bombs, there is no counter-weapon to neutralize the effects. But by subtle science, the action of a brahmastra can be counteracted, and those who were expert in military science in those days could counteract the brahmastra. The son of Dronacharya did not know the art of counteracting the weapon, and therefore Arjuna was asked to counteract it by the power of his own weapon. Text 29. Sri Sutta Goswami said, hearing this from the personality of Godhead, Arjuna touched water for purification, and, after circumambulating Lord Sri Krishna, he cast his brahmastra weapon to counteract the other one. Text 30. When the rays of the two brahmastras combined, a great circle of fire, like the disk of the sun, covered all outer space and the whole firmament of planets. Purport. The heat created by the flash of a brahmastra resembles the fire in the sun globe, which is exhibited at the time of cosmic annihilation. The radiation of atomic energy is very insignificant in comparison to the heat produced by a brahmastra. The atomic bomb explosion can at utmost blow up one globe, but the heat produced by the brahmastra can destroy the whole cosmic situation. The comparison is, therefore, made to the heat at the time of annihilation. Text 31. All the population of the three worlds was scorched by the combined heat of the weapons. Everyone was reminded of the Sambhantaka fire, which takes place at the time of annihilation. Purport. The three worlds are upper, lower, and the intermediate planets of the universe. Although the brahmastra was released on this earth, the heat produced by the combination of both weapons covered all the universe, and all the populations on all the different planets began to feel the heat excessively and compared it with heat of the Sambhantaka fire. No planet is, therefore, without living beings, as less intelligent materialistic men think. Text 32. Thus seeing the disturbance of the general populace and the imminent destruction of the planets, Arjuna at once retracted both brahmastra weapons as Lord Krishna desired. Purport. The theory that the modern atomic bomb explosions can annihilate the world is childish imagination. First of all, the atomic energy is not powerful enough to destroy the world, and secondly, ultimately it all rests on the supreme will of the Supreme Lord, because without His will or sanction, nothing can be built up or destroyed. It is foolish also to think that natural laws are ultimately powerful. Material nature's laws work under the direction of the Lord, as it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord says there that natural laws work under his supervision. The world can be destroyed only by the will of the Lord, and not by the whims of tiny politicians. Lord Sri Krishna desired that the weapons released by both Drona and Arjuna be withdrawn, and it was carried out by Arjuna at once. Similarly, there are many agents of the all-powerful Lord, and by his will only can one execute what he desires. Text 33. Arjuna's eyes blazing in anger like two red balls of copper, dexterously arrested the son of Gautami, bound him with ropes like an animal. Purport. Asvatthama's mother, Kripi, was born in the family of Gautama. The significant point in this sloka is that Asvatthama was caught and bound up with ropes like an animal. According to Sridhar Swami, Arjuna was bound to catch the son of a Brahmin like an animal as part of his duty, dharma. This suggestion by Sridhar Swami is also confirmed in later statement of Sri Krishna. Asvatthama was a bona fide son of Dronacharya and Kripi, but because he had degraded himself to a lower status of life, it was proper to treat him as an animal and not as a Brahmin. Text 34. After binding Asvatthama, Arjuna wanted to take him to the military camp. Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, looking on with his lotus eyes, spoke to angry Arjuna. Purport. Both Arjuna and Lord Krishna are described here in an angry mood, but Arjuna's eyes were like balls of red copper, whereas the eyes of the Lord are like the lotus. This means that the angry mood of Arjuna and that of the Lord are not on the same level. The Lord is transcendence, and thus he is absolute in any stage. His anger is not like the anger of a conditioned living being within the modes of qualitative material nature. Because he is absolute, both his anger and pleasure are the same. His anger is not exhibited in the three modes of material nature. It is only a sign of his bent of mind towards the cause of his devotee, because that is his transcendental nature. Therefore, even if he is angry, the object of anger is blessed. He is unchanged in all circumstances. Text 35. Lord Sri Krishna said, O Arjuna, you should not show mercy by releasing this relative of a Brahmin, Brahmabandhu, for he has killed innocent boys in their sleep. Purport. The word Brahmabandhu is significant. A person who happens to take birth in the family of a Brahmin, but is not qualified to be called a Brahmin, is addressed as the relative of a Brahmin, and not as a Brahmin. The son of a high court judge is not virtually a high court judge, but there is no harm in addressing a high court judge's son as a relative of the honorable justice. Therefore, as by birth only one does not become a high court judge, so also one does not become a Brahmin simply by birthright, but by acquiring the necessary qualifications of a Brahmin. As the high court judgeship is a post for the qualified man, so also the post of Brahmin is attainable by qualification only. The Shastras enjoin that even if good qualifications are seen in a person born in a family other than a Brahmin, the qualified man has to be accepted as a Brahmin. And similarly, if a person born in the family of a Brahmin is void of Brahminical qualifications, then he must be treated as a non-Brahmin, or, in better terms, a relative of a Brahmin. Lord Sri Krishna, the supreme authority of all religious principles, the Vedas, has personally pointed out these differences, and he is about to explain the reason for this in the following slokas. Text 36. A person who knows the principles of religion does not kill an enemy who is careless, intoxicated, insane, asleep, afraid, or devoid of his chariot. Nor does he kill a boy, a woman, a foolish creature, or a surrendered soul. Purport. An enemy who does not resist is never killed by a warrior who knows the principles of religion. Formerly, battles were fought on the principles of religion, and not for the sake of sense gratification. If the enemy happened to be intoxicated, asleep, etc., as above mentioned, he was never to be killed. These are some of the codes of religious war. Formerly, war was never declared by the whims of selfish political leaders, but it was carried out on religious principles, free from all vices. Violence carried out on religious principles is far superior to so-called nonviolence. Text 37. A cruel and wretched person who maintains his existence at the cost of others' lives deserves to be killed for his own well-being. Otherwise, he will go down by his own actions. Purport. A life for a life is just punishment for a person who cruelly and shamelessly lives at the cost of another's life. Political morality is to punish a person by a life sentence in order to save a cruel person from going to hell. That a murderer is condemned to a life sentence by the state is good for the culprit, because in his next life he will not have to suffer for his act of murder. Such a life sentence for the murderer is the lowest possible punishment offered to him, and it is said in the Smriti Shastra that men who are punished by the king on the principles of a life for a life are purified of all their sins, so much so that they may be eligible for being promoted to the planets of heaven. According to Manu, the great author of civic codes and religious principles, even the killer of an animal is to be considered a murderer, because animal food is never meant for the civilized man, whose prime duty is to prepare himself for going back to Godhead. He says that in the act of killing an animal, there is a regular conspiracy by all the party of sinners, and all of them are liable to be punished as murderers, exactly like a party of conspirators who kill a human being combinedly. He who gives permission, he who kills the animal, he who sells the slaughtered animal, he who cooks the animal, he who administers distribution of the foodstuff, and at last he who eats such cooked animal food are all murderers, and all of them are liable to be punished by the laws of nature. No one can create a living being despite all advancement of material science, and therefore no one has the right to kill a living being by one's independent whims. For the animal eaters, the scriptures have sanctioned restricted animal sacrifices only, and such sanctions are there to restrict the opening of slaughterhouses and not to encourage animal killing. The process under which animal sacrifice is allowed in the scriptures is good, both for the animal sacrificed and the animal eaters. It is good for the animal in the sense that the sacrificed animal is at once promoted to a human form of life, after being sacrificed at the altar. And the animal eater is saved from grosser types of sins, eating meat supplied by organized slaughterhouses, which are ghastly places for breeding all kinds of material afflictions to society, country, and to the people in general. The material world is itself a place always full of anxieties, and by encouraging animal slaughter, the whole atmosphere becomes polluted more and more by war, pestilence, famine, and many other unwanted calamities.